All right. Hey, thank you and welcome to Knox Makers. I think we've got one or two new folks here tonight. Is that true? We've got a new folk. All right. Be nice to him, at least for tonight. We've got to lull them into some false sense of security until he joins and joins the madness with us. So let's see. Looks like people on Facebook can't see. It's an absolute full house tonight. I won't try to get a count. This place is absolutely packed. So let's be careful, and probably hard to practice social distancing, but we'll do our best. So we start out, for anyone who hasn't been here before, we start out the night with show and share, where members show projects they've been working on, challenges they've had, successes, failures, things that are entertaining and joyful for the rest of us. And tonight we have show and share. Isaac and Tracy are going to show us a cake.
Yes.
Is there going to be sampling of the cake, or you're just,
No.
Okay, just talking to us about a cake. So I'll turn it over to them.
We have to talk a long time now since we're doing
We will suspend the 5-minute rule.
this. Okay, thanks. Go ahead.
So you may or may not know this, but Billy's birthday is coming up in just a few days. And we heard tell that Billy does not customarily celebrate his birthday. And because we had a meeting this past weekend, we decided that we would remedy that and celebrate whether he liked it or not. And so Tracy volunteered very kindly to use her culinary skills to make a tasty and delicious cake. And my skill is, of course, overcomplicating everything as much as possible. And so I immediately said that the cake should be animatronic. And so we then started brainstorming together what style specifically of animatronic cake we should make. And we had several ideas along those lines. For example, we talked about making an orange drink fountain in his honor because he enjoys those so very much. And we also talked about making an animatronic replica of Razor, the winning robot from the previous Kill Switch competition. But what we ultimately decided to do was to make him a cake that looked like Bar. That is Billy's robot, which just, boy, almost won Kill Switch. It was so close. So that was our goal.
I suggested this in general because it is square-shaped and cake is square-shaped. So I sort of thought about how it could be a thing, and then I sketched a little poorly done drawing in my notebook and sent it to Isaac and said, do you think that this will work? So he thought that the weapon should spin, obviously, because that's what it does. But how are we going to make that happen? So maybe we hide the motor in the cake, but then you have to dig it out in order to eat it. I don't know how that's going to go. So we talked a little bit more, and then I made a better drawing about with cake dimensions, or at least what I thought maybe would be cake dimensions, about how it would look. So what we came up with was that the wheels were going to be made of cookie. The weapon was going to be made of cookie, specifically biscotti, because it was hard and not like a soft cookie is not going to spin very well. So we wanted biscotti because it's going to hold up to spinning. Apparently, I didn't really know how much power this was going to get. And then the top and possibly the bottom holding the weapon on was also going to be cookie. So then Isaac came back with his model.
So this is perhaps the only cake to be rendered in OpenSCAD. I don't know. I love OpenSCAD. It's my favorite 3D modeling tool, and I use it in conjunction with 3D printing pretty frequently. But I also use it for other things too, like totally crazy things. For me, it's easy to whip up a cheap model really quickly, and it's nice to be able to sort of compare the dimensions of different things and be able to visualize what something would look like if you made it with these dimensions, you know? So this was an attempt to document what this thing is going to come out like if we follow the dimensions that we were discussing. And of course, too, I was imagining 3D printing parts of it, and so I was going to need a model of those things anyway. So here you can see the model inside the OpenSCAD interface. If you've never used OpenSCAD before, that's a free and open modeling tool that lets you textually describe the geometry that you want to create. So there's very little mousing. It's almost all typing. So if you're a coding sort of person, then it perhaps is very comfortable for you. I think it's really productive to use. And something that I've done here that is increasingly my habit is to make modules that sort of have modes. And so like at the bottom, You can see that strut in that image is like cut away in a half, and it allows you to see the motor and the battery pack inside because it's in like a display mode. But then when I want to actually render it into a model that can be 3D printed, then the parts like the motor and the battery pack, which I don't need to print, will disappear, and the model itself will of course be whole. And so that for me is a nice way to work. So we looked at this back and forth and talked about how it would work. You see that I've got a threaded rod up the middle of this thing that's providing the driving force, and then those are threaded nuts that sort of capture the biscotti weapon in the middle. And my thinking there was, I didn't know how thick the weapon would wind up being, and I could adjust the nuts to hold it, snugly, hopefully, so that it would spin and be threatening. Yeah.
So about a week ahead of time, I started to make the biscotti because I knew that would hold, and then I'd be able to give Isaac more accurate dimensions of what it actually turned out to be. I decided on chocolate with chocolate chips biscotti, and the top strut was an entire batch of biscotti. I mean, that's a cookie pan. It was very large, and I did not realize how much biscotti it would take. And also, when he gave me the dimensions of his 3D printed model, and I had a really hard time trying to find a 5/8 inch thing to like put the hole in the biscotti. I was looking for, I thought originally a drill bit, but obviously I couldn't find one that big. I ended up taking aluminum tubing from work and that was almost 5/8 inch. So I used that to like sort of carve out the hole before the second bake, before it got really crunchy. Also, I have this fancy rolling mat that I bought a few months ago, and I'm like, I know I'm gonna need a rolling mat with measurements on it someday, and I finally got to use it, so that made me very happy. Yay. So this was all the biscotti pieces after I baked them the second time. So we have 2 wheels, like this big, and then the weapon down in the middle with the hole through the middle, and then the top strut, which the 3D printed piece would poke through to hold on. And then I had to frost them and make them look pretty. So this is what they looked like after frosting. So the white to match the robot, and then the weapon was frosted also with white frosting, like a hard, crunchy candy type frosting. And then I painted it with silver glitter edible paint. And it was not glittery, which made me very sad, but it does look sort of metallic, so.
Meanwhile, I was trying to get my 3D printer working after 6 months of it being mothballed while I was moving. I am super great at underestimating how long things will take me. And so during this like roughly week period, reinstalled and all the firmware on my printer, recalibrated it, had to bring out all my old filament and get it working. It was all very wretched, and it reminded me how fiddly 3D printing is in the best of times.
You loved it.
Something that I found particularly challenging was printing the threaded rod. My first thought was to print that thing vertically to try and get the maximum quality on the 3D print. But the problem that I had was that if it stands on its end, then it has very little surface area that connects it to the hotbed. And so as it got taller and taller, every little slight vibration and nudge was making the thing wiggle, and it started to distort more and more as it got taller. So that was terrible. So then I tried making support structures to float it up off the thing so I could print it sideways, which was an even worse idea. And ultimately what I wound up doing was printing the threaded rod in 2 halves that I would glue together at the end. That was the best idea I could come up with in the available time. So that's what's happening here is I'm actually gluing together 2 halves of the threaded rod with cyanoacrylate glue. And those threaded nuts that I printed out, I have on the rod so as to make sure all the threads are registered together, and they'll actually go, around it at the end of the business. I was super nervous that I would glue the nuts onto the rod. That would be the obvious thing that I would do wrong. I did not go for the obvious thing. What I did instead wrong was that my first set of prints were so marginal that when I tried to get the nuts off, everything is sort of bound up and it ripped itself apart, and I was a very sad panda. So I actually had to reprint this thing more times than I have hairs on my head. It was all very terrible. But eventually I did get a workable set of prints. These are not prints that I'm proud of, but they did come out in a mechanically stable fashion, if not an attractive fashion. And so you can see the bottom strut here, it's got a little switch on the back that lets you turn it on and off, and then the silver business just sort of slots onto the top of the drive so that it could be married with the biscotti and then joined together at the very end. And here's the insides of it, just a little cheap gear motor and 2 AA batteries and a toggle switch. All there is to it.
So then came the big weekend when we were supposed to serve this cake. So we served it on Friday. So Wednesday, I decided I should bake these cakes so that they can chill. You don't frost cake hot. I learned that the hard way once before. But I also have now learned that you should not bake a layer cake that you need the next day if you only have one pan. So I had my square cake, and I'm like, okay, it's cooled enough. I'm going to take it out and bake the next cake. Yeah, it sort of fell apart. So I wrapped it real tight in plastic wrap and threw it in the fridge anyway because I knew it was going to be frosted and no one would see the inside. Now I'm admitting that the inside was complete pieces, sort of just hidden under frosting. So the second one I left in the fridge overnight so it was solid when I finally took it out. The next day, I realized that I had to serve the cake on something, which presented a problem because I did not have any serving trays that was going to be big enough to put the 8x8 cake on it and this ridiculously long weapon spinny bit. I thought maybe it could hang off the edge of something I had, but I wasn't sure if your printed piece had a bottom or not. I didn't want to risk it. So I searched around my house and I eventually found a cupboard front door, the front of a cupboard that I had gotten out of some other member's barn when he was giving away scrap wood. And this, you can't really see it in this picture, but it is, it's taking up like half my table. I covered it in aluminum foil. This was my initial frosting phase. It was very large, but I also didn't think about the fact that I had to put this in my refrigerator overnight. So I prayed to the cake gods, and it fit right underneath the little shelf that comes out of the door, just slid under there and fit in my fridge overnight. My entire fridge was just cake pieces. So there's another feature on Bar the robot. It was held together with bolts, with hex bolts. So I decided I was going to add those to the cake as well. So these are made of fondant, which is like you can purchase it and it's like a molding frosting, but you can also just make it by melting marshmallows and adding like a pound of sugar. So more sugar and in front of sugar. And then I dyed it with regular food coloring and then molded it into these little nut looking things and then pressed it with a hex key to make the little top bits. So this is what it looks like after I was done at my house. I cut the pieces out to put the wheels on. I glued them on with frosting. I had the little bolts on. I was ready to go on this trip with this cake. And I had to sit in the back seat and hold it for an hour to make sure it wouldn't move or tip or wobble or anything. And then we get to the cabin, the retreat center, and Isaac says, if your cake is shorter than my 3D printed piece, this is not going to work. And I said, oh, I think it'll be fine. And he said, oh, I think it's going to be fine. So here is us putting the pieces together, well, me putting the pieces together. I took the cake out, and we have the weapon on there, and I turned it on, and it did, in fact, turn. And then it turned it on while I was holding it, and I immediately broke his 3D printed piece. And then we go to put the top strut on, and there is a good 2 inches between cake and biscotti, and that is bad. But thankfully, the pieces that I had to cut out for the wheels, I did not throw away, and I didn't eat either. I was tempted, but I didn't. I'm like, I'm just going to bring these extra pieces just in case, and I'm going to bring all my extra frosting just in case. So I threw them in my bag, and I built a cake wall to lay the top strut on, which was very fragile, and then I hid it behind frosting, so it looked like I intended to do that, but it totally was not intentional. So this was the finished cake product, and then this is another view of the finished cake product. And since I had broken the 3D printed piece, we didn't want to try it again until Billy got there and saw it. and we were not sure what was going to happen, but it did, with a little bit of nudging, it did turn on. So here is Billy with his cake. Here's another picture of Billy with his cake, and here is a...
You may ask yourself, why is it so damn wobbly? I'm not really sure. You'd think that something 3D printed would be quite straight. Maybe it's because Tracy broke it. I don't know. But the fun thing was that because she added the cushion of soft cake and icing between the strut and the main cake body, it amplified every wiggle. So the thing just had this atrocious wobbling to it that had us all cracking up terribly. So that's as good as it gets, I'm afraid. Believe it or not, this is a show of great affection to Billy. Ordinarily, I can make a project like this last for months, so to pull this off by any measure in like 6 days was a miracle for me, even though it is a little wretched.
It's still an awesome.
Does anyone have any questions? Yes.
Regarding the body being constructed of pieces, now I wasn't there, but I heard that's actually how the bar ended up at the end. No, it didn't.
It was fully solid.
We did consider putting damage on it, but I mean, it looks like we did intentionally, so.
Talk about cake wars. Good work, googly eyes on it too.
Yes, there was even googly eyes.
All right, well, thank you, Isaac and Tracy, for a tasty show and share. Do we have any ad hoc impromptu show and shares that couldn't make it? You were actually first on the left, right. You were right, my left.
More of it.
Oh, I can actually, now I know who that is. Now I hear your voice, Amos. Oops, yeah, go ahead. It's the target. Change the,
So unplug the computer. I think I can do it. Let me try if I can do it on the first try. No.
Might have to bring in the big guns. I simply manage. I think that's it. You did it.
Second try. Not bad.
That's pretty good. All right. Let's see, show and share.
Yeah,
Is family friendly?
it is.
Oh, okay.
Or should it not be?
Well,
We can go either way.
we'll go family friendly. Yeah.
All right, mask on up here. Okay. Hi everybody, my name is Doug. I do woodworking for the most part, and I've had a recent project. If you all have been back in the woodworking space, all my stuff is on that one table. So I got this idea. I wanted to make a bunch of smaller projects in a series, and so I settled upon the bud vase or the bud vase. And so I made 50, one bud vase each day for 50 days. Started with a 6" by 6" by 2" block of ash for each one. So ash wood is usually, it's kind of a whitish yellowish wood. For most of them, so they're all hand carved in different designs, all 50. This is number 2. Some are drilled, most are burnt. So I left some natural ash, some burnt, some half burnt, just a good variety for 50. And so you all are in luck because this week I just brought all of them back in to put the final coat of wax on, and then they're going to be in a show at the Emporium Gallery that opens this Friday. So you all can head back there if you're interested. They're all sitting on one of the finishing tables. So all 50 in that series of 50. And then if you want to see them arranged prettily on a wall, I will hopefully be installing that tomorrow at the Emporium Gallery. But the opening is this Friday from 5 to 9, just in downtown Knoxville, free, open to all. Yeah, and I guess...
That paper, show it on the overhead.
let's see. Yeah. So when you burn it, the texture comes out, and I can pass this one around. I burn it and then brush it out. And the thing about the bud vase is, I used to make a lot of sculptural bowls, and it takes forever to get really, really thin walls. And so the bud vase is nice because you just drill press a hole in the top or in the side, really wherever you want it, and then it's more of a piece of sculpture around that hole. And then it's for dry use only. I have some glass inserts, but didn't want to experiment too much since I had to crank out one a day. Dry use only, dried flowers, stems, branches, just a variety of good stuff. And I can pull, here we can pass this one around. I do ask not to touch the ones on the back table because I just put a final coat of wax on, so it'll still be a little bit wet. But I can show you all just some of the, let's see, well, this will probably be better. I put them all on my website. I took a picture each day with different plants in them. And so this was number 50, number 49. So that one's half burnt. Has some parts that aren't burnt. And then just, that's how the series goes.
So really pretty.
Yeah, thank you.
Beautiful work. Thanks for sharing. Any other impromptu, non-planned show and shares for tonight? We have Amos with an announcement, and we are just now going into announcements, so your timing is perfect.
Just frequently we do the events, and I have a short notice event that I want to, it's not on the calendar just yet, but it should be tomorrow. A few years ago, 2017, we had a Making Metal Pumpkins class, and it's now shortly to be October, so I want to have this class again. Previously, it was done on, oh, sorry. In 2017, we had a Making Metal Pumpkins class. It was previously taught by Greg Toon, and he did a great job on it, and I think we should do it again. So I want to have that on the 9th, but I need to update the text of it a little bit. But I think I'll probably keep like the cost the same. So it was previously 15. I think it's going to be probably members only and $15. So and that should include supplies and all that. So anyway, I have I think a couple pictures. So there we were welding up back what the space, the metal working zone looked like back then. And that was the one I built. And then later on, which will not be in the class, I actually stuck LEDs in it and turned it into a web server that you can change the color of by the power of radios. Anyway, so that should be coming up, and there should also be sometime around that that week also, I'm going to try and have another blacksmithing authorization class. So. Should be, all of that should be on the calendar tomorrow.
We'll get that posted shortly. I don't know who's responsible for that. So I'll do a quick show and share. I was harassed for, I've been out of town for a number of months. I've made a lot of projects. I took off out of the house without thinking to bring a show and share. I got shamed. So I'll do a quick talk about a few classes that we did. You know, we have people come in from out of town. We live in this beautiful area around the Smoky Mountains. People come to visit all the time. With all the COVID stuff going on, there's nowhere near as many activities to take people to as we normally have. So people come in and we get out and go in the mountains and go hiking and driving around. That's easy. And then we sometimes struggle for what to do. And it turns out as people have been coming in to visit, I've been taking them through the blacksmithing shop and just doing kind of private classes with them and Andrew. And he's in the crowd back here, over there. It's hard to see through all the massive people, but he's back there. And he's done a really good job, actually. People have really enjoyed it. You know, a lot of these kids have seen like Forged in Fire, or whatever, these like reality TV blacksmithing things. They think that stuff's really cool. It's really exciting. There's nothing more fun for them than to go back home and tell their friends that they did something like that, right? As I can say, Andrew does a great job of throwing something together that would be of interest to the particular parties that are there. And everyone I've taken through, when people come through, we just go down there, do a class for the day and have a good time. And everyone has really, really enjoyed it. It's a super unique thing to do. It's a lot more kind of immersive and fun than you'll ever get, I think, out in Gatlinburg for 4 times the price. It's really a great deal. So I thought I could share just a couple of things that we did. This is one of my nieces, one of my favorite nieces, making a few things. Scroll through a couple of projects, and my nephew, his twin, they're twins actually, just old enough to drive now. And that's, of course, my mom down here visiting. What we made was this little, I'll call them kind of blacksmith seahorses. They're pretty cool little projects. And so it's kind of something pretty neat that we actually could finish in a couple of hours. Kids at this age, they can't swing a hammer. They're not going to be able to do it. They're not going to be able to move metal around like you need to. So Andrew does a good job of trying to help hold things for them or help push them through it and stuff like that. Does a good job of kind of having them feel like they made the project while he helps them along so it gets done in a reasonable amount of time. So that was cool. One of my favorite ones, which I made with him, actually I made that one too. I won't admit which one was mine. But this was really cool. I had my nephew coming from Kansas City, actually from kind of near where he's from. He came in and we joked all day. We said, what are we going to make? You can't really see that too well.
Zoom in a little bit.
Oh, yeah? Oh, right. Good point. It'll kind of re-vector the thing, maybe. There you go. So we showed up. We weren't 100% sure what we were going to make, but we showed up, and Andrew said, we're going to make like a little knife, a little hand knife thing. So, of course, the joke all day was these are our shivs. And when we finish class, we're going to go downtown, Knoxville, practice our shivs, come back, refine the art, that kind of thing. But it was pretty cool. In the time that we had, we actually did make them. They actually had a nice shape of a knife. Took them in on the grinder, ground a gentle edge on them, and I'll just say they worked great. They were really good. And that's him banging on it. You can see he's beating on it. The metal's not moving a lot, but we got through the process. That was my brother. He came in, kind of hammered it too. So thought I'd throw that out as an idea. If you have people come and visit, they put on a great class over there. All right? Cool. You want to clap joyously for that shiv or else. So it really works well. So class is coming up. We've got a laser class this Saturday for anyone who wants to learn to use the laser, for anyone who used the old laser, wants to learn the new laser, that kind of thing. Please come on out and check that out. There's still slots left, I think. Are there? Okay. Good. So Tracy's putting that on. Thank you. And then I actually have a class. I'm in town for a few weeks, so threw a class on the calendar on October 9th, Saturday morning. It's on what's called time domain reflectometry. That's kind of a fancy sounding word for something where you can basically launch a signal, a little electrical impulse down a line, and you can see what's going on in the line from here to however far you can kind of discern your signal. You send a signal down, and anytime there's something different in the line, something unusual, you'll get a reflection back. And you can read that reflection back and interpret that in various ways. The kind of common example that everyone gives is there's a break in a line. So like a cable TV thing, or buried lines, there's a break somewhere. The house isn't getting cable anymore. Serviceman can go out to a box, hook up to this thing, launch a signal down there, and you can time how long it takes to get to the end and reflect back, and go, there's the break in the line. Then they go down and dig up right there. So that's how they know exactly where to dig when a line breaks in some mysterious place. So that's the real common example that you usually hear for time domain reflectometry. There are many, many other ways that it's used. It's kind of cool, and in learning a little about that, you can maybe learn a little about how electricity flows around the circuits and things. It's kind of cool. So that class is pretty cheap. We put on there $5. All the proceeds go to Knox Makers, all that good stuff. So come on down and check that out if you want to. We have a lockpicking class that has been submitted, but it's not on the calendar yet. I don't remember the date. I don't remember. I saw the email. 10/10, Sunday. So that would be next Sunday. So that sounds like a very cool class. Pretty fun. What's that? 2 to 4?
Noon to 4.
Noon to 4. Okay, good.
And then we have another one, Anatomy of the Lock, which is on 10/13, 6 to 10.
6 to 10 on 10/13. Got Got it, okay. And those will be up on the calendar of events on the website shortly. So try not to draw too much from the theme of lock picking and shiv making. If you're new to, well, that is how we roll. So that's it. So hey, other than that, everyone, any other announcements? Anything else from anybody? All right, good. Well, thanks for coming tonight. Enjoy Open Hack. Get out and enjoy it. See everybody. If anyone else hasn't been here, find someone with a badge on. We'll give you a tour of the place so you can check it all out. And thanks and enjoy the evening.